And now we've finished at the historic St James's Palace, I'll be taking you on a historic on-foot tour of Mayfair. And our first port of call is this fine old shop, Berry Brothers and Rudd, which is still Britain's oldest still functioning wine merchants. It was founded in the 17th century by the widow Bourne. Started as a coffee house, hence why you see the sign of the coffee mill, which it still operates under to this day, and it progressed from there on onto a wine and spirit merchants. And the high polloi and well-to-do of society, even to this day, still go inside to be weighed on its scales. But right next to it is a very interesting little courtyard I'm going to take you down. Pickering Place, which one of its interesting little quirks of history is it was the home of the Texas legation. In this building was the legation for the ministers from the Republic of Texas to the Court of St James from 1842 to 1845, and this sign was erected by the Anglo-Texan Society. If you take a walk down this little courtyard, and you can feel the age of it, it takes you into Pickering Place, which is a really interesting historical little location in this area. It originally started its life off as a garden, but come the 18th century, this is quite a dodgy little area, believe it or not, because it only has one entrance through which we've just walked. It was a frequent of bear baiting, cockfighting, and it's said that London's last duel was fought here in the 18th century. And there's its founder, Mr. Pickering. You've got the Pickering cellar just down the side here. As I say, very interesting little location. And we shall go on with our tour. We'll be going past several old pubs, which I've already covered for you, and we'll be heading to St James's Square Gardens. Here's another famous one, Lock & Co. Hatters of London, and they held the royal warrant for many years. How old the doors are. It was founded in 1676. And another famous one coming up is Lob of London, where you will pay a pretty penny for a very expensive pair of shoes, and they still hold the royal warrant by appointment to His Majesty the King. Bootmaker, John Lob Limited, London. There's a bit of history here. on we go with our tour. All this is up because you've got the 10k marathon thing in London today, which I didn't know about, if I'm brutally honest with you, but I've managed to get round where I need to go. And we're walking onto King Street now. With some more famous locations, and heading into St James's Square. It is a blue plaque haven. Christie's is just there. Crown Passage, another old one. There's a wine bar down there which I shall check out at another time. Here you've got Simon Ray, Indian and Islamic works of art. And this building here used to be St James's Theatre, which was sadly taken down in the 1950s. And then replaced with a very modern looking jobby. And here is our first historic pub. Pubs will feature at the end of our sequence of walking historic Mayfair. And this is the Golden Lion. There's been a pub on this site since the 18th century, but this one was built right at the end of the Victorian era, in the very early 1900s. And a little piece of the theatre's history is just down here. St James's Theatre. On this site stood the St James's Theatre, demolished in 1957, despite an epic campaign of protest led by Vivian Leigh, Sir Laurence Olivier, George Alexander, who was the manager from 1890 to 1918, and staged both Oscar Wilde's and Lady Windermere's Fan and the Importance of Being Earnest for the first time. When we cover the Golden Lion, you'll see some nice old images of the St James's Theatre as part of that, because quite a few of the actors used to drink in this pub, and there's some theatre memorabilia inside. Nice old pub. Must admit I did enjoy my little wander around. They very kindly let me take photos. Duke Street, St James's SW1, and we're coming up to St James's Square right in front of us. St James's Square is, well, the St James's Square Gardens is closed on a Sunday, but when I came back on a weekday and covered our pubs. When we go to our next historic pub, which is the Red Lion, I managed to cover it then. And you've got another blue plaque up there. Napoleon III lived here in 1848. In the St James's Gardens, there's a fine statue of King William of Orange, and a nice little pergola type arbour area. And we get a quick twirl around, and our main port of call for that tour is the Red Lion pub. And this is St James's Square. And there's quite a few blue plaques around this way. And an interesting information board on this building here. Which relates to the Napoleonic Wars. The Waterloo Way, 16 St James's Square. On Sunday the 18th of June 1815, the Anglo-Dutch army under the command of the Duke of Wellington and the Prussian army led by Field Marshal Gebhard Lebrecht von Blücher defeated Napoleon Bonaparte's army at the Battle of Waterloo, 8 miles south of Brussels in Belgium. This victory was a defining moment in European history. The official dispatch with the news of the victory was carried to England by the Honourable Major Henry Percy, the 14th Light Dragoons, an aide-de-camp to the Duke of Wellington. He travelled post-chaise from Brussels to Ostend, where he joined His Majesty's ship, the Peruvian, under the command of Commander James White, the Royal Navy, which then sailed to England, landing at Broadstairs. The officers travelled together by post-chaise to London, arriving on the 21st of June 1815, immediately after delivering the Duke of Wellington's dispatch to the Prime Minister and the Secretary of State for War at Grosvenor Square. Major Percy continued his journey here to 16 St James's Square and laid 2 French Imperial Eagles captured at Waterloo before His Royal Highness the Prince Regent, who would become King George IV, who was attending a soiree hosted by Mrs. Edmund Boham, unveiled by Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal on the 21st of June 2015 to inaugurate the Waterloo Way from Brussels to London, and in honour of all those who fought at Waterloo on the 18th of June 1815. That's interesting. And here is the London Library. And this building is our next blue plaque. It's got some scaffolding up at the moment, so you'll have to excuse that. But it relates to an interesting lady. Ada, Countess Lovelace, 1815 to 1852, pioneer of computing, lived here. Historic images of these people where possible will feature at the end of the video. And our next famous location with a blue plaque is here. which is the Royal Institute for International Affairs nowadays. You can see by its blue plaque. Here lived 3 Prime Ministers: William Pitt, Earl of Chatham, 1708 to 1778, Edward Geoffrey Stanley, Earl of Derby, 1799 to 1869, and William Ewart Gladstone, 1809 to 1898. And our next blue plaque building is right in front of us. Someone's cooking a curry by the smell of it. That smells quite nice, actually. I wouldn't dare eat anything like that this early in the morning. The resulting unfortunateness, shall we say, keeping it politely, would resemble an explosion in a chocolate gâteau factory. Irritable bowel syndrome and spicy foods are not good bedfellows. And here's our next one. This fine house in front of us here. And this is a big one for women's history, really, and political history. Nancy Astor, 1879 to 1964. The first woman to sit in Parliament lived here. Nancy Astor and Winston Churchill utterly detested each other, and she was once known to have said to him, "Winston, if you were my husband, I would put poison in your coffee." And he said to her, "Nancy, my dear, if you were my wife, I would gladly drink it." So they were fond of each other, as you can tell. And we are going back on ourselves now, because we're going to the house where died the founder of the West End of London. Those of you that enjoy the West End, a little foray up here, or indeed those of you that live here, basically the West End owes its existence to the man whose plaque we're going to go and see now. Duke of York Street, which is just here, and this is the house. And the plaque. Look left to St James's Square and right to St James's Church. St James's Square there, and St James's Church, which we've already covered, and you'll have already seen, for those of you that have watched it, I managed to cover it and put it on for its 341st anniversary. In Jermyn Street is St James's Church. All this was the inspiration of one man, Henry Jermyn, Earl of St Albans, Knight of the Garter, 1605 to 1684, diplomat and favourite of Queen Henrietta Maria, and the founder of the West End, who died in this house on this site. So really, the West End owes its existence to Henry Jermyn. And this, in case you're wondering, is for when they used to have torches outside gentlemen's houses. I'll now walk you up Duke of York Street and take you on to Jermyn Street, going past another one of the historic pubs that I covered earlier. And here it is, the Red Lion, which has already been covered. One that my mum tagged me in, and the post proved very popular. It's beautiful interior, proper gin palace type pub with the old etched glass and everything. And we're going to walk onto Jermyn Street right now, which of course owes its existence to Henry Jermyn, as does this church, which you've already seen. And Jermyn Street, interestingly enough, was a frequent of the female gang known as the 40 Elephants gang. They came from Elephant and Castle, and what they would do, these ladies from Elephant and Castle, they would dress themselves up as fine ladies, and they would go in all the jewellery shops and the fine wares shops down here, and they would steal things and switch real jewels over for fake ones. And thus concludes the end of our tour here. Historic images will feature now. The house in which lived Napoleon III. He lived there in 1848. Here's his blue plaque. Napoleon III, Charles Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, 1808 to 1873, was President of France from 1848 to 1852, and then Emperor of the French from 1852 until his deposition in 1870. He was the first President and second Emperor and last monarch of France. And this is 16 St James's Square, where George, Prince Regent, later George IV, was enjoying a soiree when, after the Battle of Waterloo, those captured French eagles were taken to him. And this is one of the captured French eagle standards captured at Waterloo in 1815. And this is the house in which lived Ada Lovelace, Countess of Lovelace. Very, very interesting woman. Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, née Byron, 1815 to 1852, also known as Ada Lovelace, was an English mathematician and writer, chiefly known for her work on Charles Babbage's proposed mechanical general-purpose computer, the analytic engine. She was the first to recognise that the machine had applications beyond pure calculation. A very intelligent woman and pioneering in English ladies' history. And this is the house in which lived three prime ministers, namely William Pitt the Elder, Edward Geoffrey Stanley, and William Ewart Gladstone, and a little on each of those men now. William Pitt the Elder, 1st Earl of Chatham, 1708 to 1778, was a British Whig statesman who served as Prime Minister of Great Britain from 1766 to 1768. Historians call him Chatham or Pitt the Elder to distinguish him from his son William Pitt the Younger, who also served as Prime Minister. Pitt was also known as the Great Commoner because of his long-standing refusal to accept a title in 1766. He was a heavy drinker and also went partially mad at one point. Edward Geoffrey Stanley. Edward Geoffrey Smith Stanley, 14th Earl of Derby, 1799 to 1869, known as Lord Stanley from 1834 to 1851, was a British statesman and Conservative politician who served 3 times as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. To date, he is the longest-serving leader of the Conservative Party from 1846 to 1868. He is one of only 4 British Prime Ministers to have had 3 or more separate periods in office. However, his ministries each lasted less than 2 years and totalled 3 years and 280 days. Derby introduced the state education system in Ireland and reformed Parliament. William Ewart Gladstone. William Ewart Gladstone, 1809 to 1898, was a British statesman and Liberal politician, starting as a Conservative MP for Newark and later became the leader of the Liberal Party. In a career lasting more than 60 years, he was Prime Minister of the United Kingdom for 12 years, spread over 4 non-consecutive terms, the most of any British Prime Minister, beginning in 1868 and ending in 1894. He was also Chancellor of the Exchequer 4 times, for more than 12 years. He was a Member of Parliament for 60 years, from 1832 to 1845 and from 1847 to 1895. During that time, he represented a total of 5 constituencies. Queen Victoria couldn't stand Gladstone. She much preferred Benjamin Disraeli. And this is one that I found very interesting as well, the house in which lived Nancy Astor. Here's her plaque, Nancy Astor, first woman to sit in Parliament. Another biggie for female English history. Nancy Witcher Astor, Viscountess Astor, 1879 to 1864, was an American-born British politician who was the first woman seated as a Member of Parliament, serving from 1919 until 1945. Astor was born in Danville, Virginia, and raised in Greenwood, Virginia. Her first marriage to socialite Robert Gould Shaw II was an unhappy one and ended in divorce. She then moved to England and married American-born Englishman Waldorf Astor in 1906. And this one, the house in which died the man who is lauded as the founder of the West End. Henry Jermyn, Earl of St Albans, Knight of the Garter. Henry Jermyn, 1st Earl of St Albans, 1605 to 1684, was an English royalist politician, diplomat, courtier and property developer. In September 1662, St Albans obtained a leasehold on a grant of land at Pall Mall Field in London, north of St James's Palace. He began the development of the field with the construction of ground houses in the classical style at what would soon become St James's Square. The City of London, which feared for its water supply, was hostile to the plan, but the support of Charles II for the development discouraged opposition. The Survey of London acknowledges Henry Jermyn as the founder of the West End. And one that I found very, very interesting. This is Jermyn Street and the 40 Elephants gang. The 40 Elephants were a 19th and 20th century all-female crime syndicate who specialised in shoplifting. The 40 Elephants, or 40 Thieves, were a 19th to 20th century all-female London crime syndicate who specialised in shoplifting, also called hoisting at the time. The gang was notable for its longevity and skill in avoiding police detection. The 40 Thieves operated from Elephant and Castle area of London. They were allied with the Elephant and Castle mob, led by the MacDonald brothers. They raided quality stores in the West End of London and ranged all over the country. The gang was also known to masquerade as housemaids for wealthy families before ransacking their homes, often using false references. They were in existence from at least 1873 to the 1950s, with some indications that they may have existed since the 18th century. And Alice Diamond and the 40 Elephants, and she's probably the most famous member of the 40 Elephants gang. The 40 Thieves leader Mary Carr was always in and out of jail. This allowed a new Queen Bee to take over, Alice Diamond, aka Diamond Annie. She took over leadership of the gang at just 20 years old and quickly evolved their small thefts into big-time operations. Diamond Annie planned simultaneous heists all over the West End, leaving coppers scrambling to chase them all. And here she is, the lady herself. Her nickname came from her fists full of diamond rings. She used to land a punch on anyone who'd got in her way, even the police. The 40 Thieves became very active under Alice's rule in the 1910s and 1920s, and soon became known as the 40 Elephants gang. This is likely a cheeky nod to both their home turf, the Elephant and Castle, as well as their occupation. They look like elephants leaving a shop with furs stuffed under their bustles. And here they are, the main culprits of the 40 Elephants gang, of course headed by Alice Diamond. And the genius of the 40 Elephants gang, some of them did used to disguise themselves as men and go on the rob, but lots of room to hide things under big skirts and bustles. And this is some of the methods they used. Artificial arms, which you can see in the left image, and hidden purses, which you can see in the right image. And that concludes our little tour. Hope you all enjoyed, and thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please don't forget to like, share, drop a comment, and hit the notification bell so YouTube will let you know when I next upload. Thanks all, and I'll see you all on the next one.